Diddy's personal assistant, identified in court by the name Mia for purposes of anonymity, testified in court today that Diddy forced her to have non-consensual sex. In addition, she testified to several incidents of SA, some of which she said she was able to remember details, others she said she would black out, and it just started running together. I am Joe Neerman, aka Good Logic. I am an attorney who's practiced in this courthouse. I am covering the Diddy trial every day and trying to provide you with a legal perspective as to what is unfolding inside this trial. Today is day 12, and much of the day we saw Mia on the stand, who testified that she was a personal assistant. And this morning we heard all about how Diddy was a tyrannical boss, at times making her work for 5 days straight without any sleep, and the levels of responsibility that she had, that she had to run all of his social media, that she had to be his liaison to Hollywood, that she had to make sure that whatever needs he had, that she would meet them, that she could not leave his side during any of his waking moments. She had to be, quote, in his eye line at all times, and that her hours were and that she had to run the gamut to do everything from him. What does that mean, everything? Everything from cracking his knuckles to writing his next movie to doing his taxes. That's what she had to do for Diddy. He sounds like a terrible boss, awful, just horrific. At the same time, you had to ask yourself, why are we hearing about this? He's not charged with being a bad boss, even if he's a jerk. Why would the court allow her to testify in a way that would seem to be very prejudicial? As we got into the afternoon, we started hearing more about his abuse, about his beratement of her, about how he would curse at her, about how he started throwing things at her. And ultimately, as we got near the end of the day, we started hearing about the SA. Now, the incidents with him throwing things at her, he seems like someone who's impossible to please. She claims, for example, they were on set for a movie, and in his trailer he was having trouble to get his Wi-Fi connect. She was sent to go talk to the set production guy, to an assistant, to find out what was wrong with the Wi-Fi. She spoke to that guy, comes back to Diddy, she's explaining to him what's going on. He cuts her off and he starts saying, this is all your fault, this is your responsibility, I don't care if you have to get Bill Gates on the phone. And he picks up his computer and threw it at her head, just missing her head. And she claimed that he was trying to hit her in the head with it. That if anything went wrong, she would get punished, and punishment would result in her being suspended and berated and laughed at, and sometimes physically assaulted. Physical assault that she describes different than this physical assault we've heard about him punching and beating and kicking Cassie, more like picking her up and throwing her into a pool. Not in a playful type of way was certainly the implication. That he got angry and at her when she was laying in a hammock, and threw a bucket of ice water on her and grabbed her phone away and was trying to bully her by going through her phone and running away with it. And she was afraid that he was going to see messages that she had with her staff, because the staff would regularly be talking about his mood, because his mood would dictate the environment and the level of chaos in Diddy World that day. And that she was worried that he would find on their text messages where she's like, yeah, he's being a jerk today, and that he would get mad and punish her, and that when he punishes her, that he would be very aggressive and very and taking away her money and making her and suspending her and basically making her feel, as she said, worthless. But as we got near the end of the day, we started hearing more about the sexual assaults, and those claims. She recounted a couple of incidents where he started moving closer by his 40th birthday party, that he told her he wanted to talk to her alone in the kitchen, and that he leaned in and kissed her, and that he had given her a couple of vodkas, and that for one reason or another the shots of vodka had more of an impact on her than she said any vodka she ever had before, and that he reached under her skirt, and that she was terrified and afraid and confused because nothing like this had ever happened. And the next thing she knows, she wakes up in another room. And she thought, okay, that was just a one-off. That was a crazy thing. He was drunk, I was drunk. I'm not telling anyone about this. And then there's another incident when he's leaning over her, and she said she felt very uncomfortable because it was not the normal proximity that he would be to her. And one of the security guards, Uncle Paulie, had just been joking when she went up there about how something to the effect of, "I've seen this before," when she went up to his room bringing him his bags. So she felt this developing tension and claimed that she never had any sort of sexual interest in Diddy. And then she talks about how he came into her room one night because when they were on location, different houses, she would have to sleep in a room and never was allowed to lock the door. That Diddy had a rule that this is my house and no one is locking me out of a room, my house, and that she was asleep in her room, and that the next thing she knows, she wakes up and feels the weight of Diddy on top of her, and that was the start of him engaging in non-consensual sex. And she said that she was terrified and alone and afraid, and she didn't know what to say, what to do, and that was quick. And the way she testified about this, when she talks about anything remotely personal, she cannot say the words. She actually expresses herself by saying, she said, he put his over and over again, and then before saying he put himself inside, and like whispering, he put himself inside me. Whenever she's talking about things that are far less personal, she would clam up and be searching for words. When she was talking even about the Diddy, the tyrannical boss, sometimes she would lose herself in the way she would be talking, that she would sound like she's not sure what word she should use. And talking in that slow, stilted type of way of someone who many people would say has been traumatized, whether it's by Diddy or by someone else. She might have been traumatized by a complete stranger that we've never heard of, but that she has somehow been affected and perhaps by Diddy, that's completely speculative. But ultimately, when she's talking about the assault of a sexual nature, she becomes very, her breathing is labored, and she comes out struggling to express it. She said she thought she would die without ever telling anyone this, and that the only time she ever talked about it was talking to the government about it, because she felt she had a duty to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Now, I'm expressing this quickly for purposes of trying to keep this video condensed. When she's expressing it in very slow cadence, and how the jury interprets that, whether she's measuring her words because she's traumatized or whether they think she's measuring her words because they think that she's lying, that's the individual interpretation. That's very subjective. I had this question all along: why are we hearing about this? This doesn't seem to lead towards trafficking. This doesn't seem to lead even toward RICO. Why is the judge allowing the jury to hear this type of information, which seems highly prejudicial? It seems as if you're going to get a jury to want to throw him in prison whether or not he's committed the crimes that he's charged with. And that was bothering me. But near the end of her testimony, I started to understand what the thought process is. I still, in my heart of hearts, think that it should not have been allowed. I'm going to go on record as saying that. I don't think it should have been allowed because I think it's so prejudicial, but I can at least understand the argument that the government likely made in order to get this admitted. And it would go something like this: that we want the jury to understand that nobody has an chance to deny Diddy. No one will deny Diddy anyone. Anything, any demand, no one will. So when they're questioning why would Cassie feel compelled to do this, it's because everyone feels compelled to bend to his will and his whim, no matter how ostentatious, no matter how outrageous or degrading or humiliating it is. Because she expressed, when she was explaining why she didn't talk to anyone, why she stayed there, why she never even said the word no to him. She said, if I wouldn't say no to him on a sandwich, and if he wants this, there's no way I'm saying no to him on it. Why? What would happen? He would punish me. That I would get fired. I would lose everything. No one would believe me, and it would just be, and I would be humiliated. I would be humiliated. She said she never told Cassie, even though Cassie was a close friend of hers. She never told anyone about this because she saw how when one other woman spoke up, this is a woman by the name of Kayla, spoke up about his abuse of Cass and spoke to HR about it, that the next thing she knew, there's a whole she's part of a joint conference call, and Kayla gets fired. And she said, all that's going to end up happening is I'll get fired, I'll get humiliated. She obviously was very uncomfortable talking about it. She talked about how she's terrified and embarrassing, and she felt like trash when he was engaging in these encounters. And the point is, no one feels empowered to say no to him, and that he will do whatever he wants and make whatever demands he wants, and fully confident that even if you go to the police, she said how she saw that whenever the police were interacting with him, that she got pulled over one time for a ticket, and she said, I'm sorry, I'm speeding, and she didn't have a driver's license. I'm afraid I'm going to upset my boss. Who's your boss? My boss is Diddy. Cop didn't believe her. She said, get him on the phone. She said, I got him on the phone, and the cop who started gushing, oh my God, I'm such a big fan of yours, and let her go. She said, I saw the cops interact with him all the time. Nobody will say no to Diddy. No one's going to believe me, and all that's going to happen is I'm going to lose my job, and I'll be ruined in this industry. I won't have anything. I'll lose my whole life, my friends, everyone. No one's going to believe me. So I think that perhaps the judge allowed her to testify about this potentially highly prejudicial testimony for the purpose of enabling the jury to understand what it's like to be subjected to Diddy in this environment, and how everyone feels completely disempowered and like they have no choice but to go along with whatever demand Diddy makes, no matter how outrageous it is. In my humble opinion, I still don't think it should have been allowed because it's so incredibly inflammatory, but at least you can understand the mindset of the court when they allowed this type of testimony to come in here. We still have not finished direct testimony. That's supposed to conclude tomorrow, as well as getting a cross-examination, which I expect to be blistering, because in several ways her testimony conflicted with, it was corroborative of what Deontay and Cassandra said in the overarching message, but certain details she gave there seemed to be conflicting in ways that the defense is almost certainly going to be aggressive on. I'm Joe Neerman, aka Good Logic. Please like, share, subscribe if you like this type of content. I'm here every day dropping a minimum of 2 videos a day, some shorter, some longer, and I urge you, if you like this type of content, don't just like and share and subscribe, drop a comment in the algorithm, and make sure you hit that bell. Till next time, Godspeed.